Okay, in this video, what we're going to do is introduce you guys to display list.
That's right.
This is an awesome approach at speeding up, let's just say, anything that needs to be drawn in your scene that could end up becoming a daunting task, well, in the draw loop itself.
That's right. If it takes up a lot of time.
Like if you're creating thousands and thousands of vertices to make up a static model.
Right.
You may want to push that onto a display list and then just simply call that display list. And what's going to happen is the tons and tons of calls that are used to actually generate all of the vertices and all, they're streamlined into a special area of memory so that we can hit this a lot faster than the way we would normally hit it in our draw loop itself.
Right, and it's especially useful as well. Let's say you have one object that you need to draw multiple times, one very complex object. You can simply call the list over and over again, you know, moving it around if you need to, and it will draw it very quickly, very nicely.
So yeah, this is extremely handy. Now,
and
to demonstrate,
surprisingly easy, actually.
Yeah, it's very easy. So to demonstrate this, all we're going to do is take our simple SDL demo, and as a matter of fact, go ahead and execute it real quick. You guys remember this one with the little cube that we can move around, and it's no lighting. We just took that out, and we're going to simplify the heck out of this. What we're going to do, though, is modify our application so that we can generate tons of these cubes, lots of them. And then we're going to simply have that put onto a display list for us, and then call the display list to handle pushing all these cubes out to our viewport.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and start out. And let me kind of outline the process needed to create a display list. The first thing you need to do is generate an ID for your display list. Much like when we were creating textures in the previous lesson, in the texture lesson, we had to generate a texture ID. And the same thing here, we have to generate a list. And this returns to us an ID. And with that ID, we create a new list and then basically put everything into that list and then end the list off. And we can simply call that list, passing it the ID, and we're done. So the first thing we need to do is actually have a place to store this ID. So all we're going to do is do a GLU int gridless, and we'll simply specify this as 0.
0, meaning that there's no list at the moment.
Exactly. And let's come down to our draw scene here, and we're going to consolidate this draw cube function, this draw cube area.
Yeah, just throw it into a function.
Yeah, called draw cube. So let me just come into here and do a GL void, draw cube. And simply paste that entire bunch of code right here. And then I'm going to draw this cube over and over again. So let me just do a simple loop here. So for GL float equals x, x equals -20. And while x is less than 20. So we're going to put cubes from -20 on x to +20 on x.
Right.
And we're going to increment.
Space them apart.
Space them apart like, let me space them apart at 2.5. So if you think about that, that's 40 divided by 2.5, which I believe is like 16 cubes or something like that. And then for GL float y equals -20. And after we just create all of these, we can obviously change these around if we want to, draw more cubes or less cubes.
In a really strange way, we're very much doing something similar we did in the, I guess it was it last?
Yeah.
No, the video before last, where we put together the
light
grid.
demo, yeah.
Yeah.
The first thing is, let's do our GL matrix mode, and we're going to draw this cube multiple times and do a GL translate to move it around. So let's go ahead and save the model view matrix and then push it and then pop it back so that we can move this into various places. So do a GL matrix mode, GL model view, and then do a GL push matrix.
So we're simply saving the current state of our model view matrix.
And then popping it back.
After we're done.
So we'll do a GL translate F, X, Y, because we have those. And then Z, we'll set it just to 0. And then we'll call our draw cube.
So here's a great question for you. So at the very end, well, this is a question for all of our students. Where is the model view matrix going to have us? Well,
it's going to have us exactly where we were before.
Right, which is when at the very beginning when we push our camera back.
Right, which is going to be -5, 1, and 1.
Then our rotate, the way it's set up there. So yeah, that's all we're going to be restoring in the very end.
That's right.
Which is kind of cool.
Very, very cool. And also, let's kind of move ourselves back, because notice we're going from -20 to 20. Let's bump this all the way back to -60.
So that we can actually see all of the cubes.
Yeah, no kidding. So let's go ahead and compile this and just see what this looks like.
Woo.
So we got lots of cubes going on right here.
Look how easy that was.
Yeah, very, very simple.
Now, one thing, unfortunately, is My machine has a very powerful video card.
Yes, it does.
It's got the 6800 GT overclocked, so which means I can draw millions of polygons extremely fast.
That's right.
So we're not going to see much of a difference here, at least not on my machine.
But the concept is still there.
Exactly. So you guys, if you don't happen to have a super fast video card, you'll definitely see the results.
Right. Sometimes I've seen over twice the frame rate, sometimes an increase when switching over to using display list.
Right.
So you can get huge increase. Just kind of look for, when you're coding, look for areas where you can actually start doing that. So let's start here by saying if we don't have a display list yet, we're going to go ahead and create it.
That's right.
So let's go ahead and do a grid list equals, and I was saying before we have to generate our list.
Right, we should just use glGenLists. And
we pass it 1, which is how many lists we want to create.
We just want 1.
Yep.
That's right. Just like when we did the textures, like you said a few minutes ago.
Yep, exactly the same. Now we need to start creating our list. So we do a glNewList, and then we pass it what list we want to create, which we've just got with our grid list, and then how do we want to create it. And that's going to be our glCompile. And just really quick here, I'm going to bring up the help file and just show you exactly how this works here, because there's 2 things we can pass to our glNewList. I'm going to show you this. We have our glCompile and our glCompileExecute. Basically what this means is when we're compiling our list, do we want it to execute as well?
So do we want it, as it makes this one pass-through, to actually draw all of these cubes to our viewport? Or do we want to just simply compile the list without drawing anything?
Right, which means we'd have to wait until the next frame before it actually draws.
Precisely.
So sometimes you might want to do glCompile or glCompileExecute. It depends on what you're doing.
Right.
In this case, I'll do a glCompile and execute. So, execute.
So as it's putting this display list together, it's also drawing out each of these items.
Exactly. So let's move this over. And then once you're done doing everything, I mean, this could get really, really huge, have tons of conditions inside. It doesn't matter. Essentially, all it's going to do is every OpenGL command it sees, it's going to throw onto that linear list.
Oh, but here's the important thing that they've got to understand. You just said it. You could have tons of conditions in there. If this happens, do this. If that, do... You know, the bottom line is it's static.
Yep.
Right? So what's going to happen is all of these conditions are going to be figured out ahead of time. They're going to be worked out.
Yep.
So that your list ends up being nothing more than just a straight list of GL calls.
And their parameters.
That's right, and the parameters associated with them.
And then once we do a GL call list, all it does is linearly loop through that list, just go through that list and execute all of those commands. So it's extremely
And you
fast.
can see how now we're no longer having to do conditional checks and blah, blah, blah. All the things we've stripped out. It knows exactly what to do from start to finish. And, big time speed improvement. Yeah. Not only that, but the fact that it's in a very fast area of memory on your video card makes it even better.
Definitely. So once we've decided we've got everything we want, we simply do a glNlist, and booyah, we're done. So if gridList equals 0, we're going to come in here and create the list. So this is no longer going to be 0. So let's do an else condition here. So it's not 0. All we need to do is somehow call that list. Very easy to do. Simply do a glCallList. And pass it what list we want to call.
That's right.
And that's going to be simply grid list. So let me go ahead and...
that's really it.
It's
pretty easy, guys.
So check that out. It's now drawing all of these cubes supposedly faster. Well, it should be faster.
But unfortunately, with my machine, it's pretty much the same speed unless we go with so many cubes that it's just ridiculous to look at. But you guys can follow along with this, and, depending on the video card you have, you may see a really nice improvement.
Right.
Problem is, if you stay up to date with the most modern video cards that's out, this stuff's getting faster and faster, guys.
Right.
I mean, it really, really is.
But then again, in a real-time environment, you always want to try to make your applications as fast as possible.
That's a fact.
So that things that used to be bottlenecks continue not to be bottlenecks. I mean, something like when you're drawing the same object over and over again, you never want that to be a bottleneck.
Especially if it's a large object made up of lots of vertices, etc.
Exactly. So
and it's not just the geometry that's getting pushed on this list. That's the key thing for everybody to understand. Every GL command that we're utilizing, everything inside the OpenGL library, we're pushing all of that onto the list.
All of those onto the list.
Okay, so with that, that's just a nice little introduction to display list.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, guys.